Imagine that sound is like a spring, each ring representing an octave. As you climb up the spring, the sound frequencies increase, with each point doubling the frequency of its equivalent in the lower ring. Here is the spring as seen from above. That's one complete circle, or, in musical terms, an octave. The circle has no beginning and no end, so you can choose to draw it starting from any of its points. The circle represents sound as a continuum, but you need to divide it so you may write it, read it, repeat it, so you may communicate it as a language. I just divided the octave into 12 equal parts. In the Western world and music in general, this is for the most part the norm. We take 12 samples from the infinite possibilities within an octave. Having everyone always on board isn't that much fun, so I'll pick 7 out of these 12 points. Let's call them notes. As we move clockwise around the circle, these notes form 7 scales. We could pick any 7 notes we fancy, creating almost an endless number of scales. We could also build these scales from different number of elements. Scales with 5, 6 or 8 notes are just as frequent. I picked up 7 notes, and the fact is that we have only 7 names: C, D, E, F, G, A and B. The remaining 5 notes will receive the same 7 names while altered with sharps and flats. Here you have 2 places where notes are consecutive, from E to F and from B to C. E and F, B and C are separated by a single space, a semitone. The other notes are a 2 space distance apart, a whole tone. In this particular configuration, with these names and spaces between them, these are called the 7 natural notes, the white keys on a piano. So, what do we have here? Well, it depends on where we start. If moving in a clockwise direction, we may assemble 7 different scales. From C and back to C, we have C major, or the C Ionian mode. Here you have the semitones between notes 3 and 4 and notes 7 and 8, which is C again. This is the code shared between all major scales, 3 to 4 and 7 to 8, the place of the semitones. From D to D, we have the D Dorian mode, then E Phrygian, F Lydian and G Mixolydian. From A to A, the Aeolian mode, also known as the natural minor scale, B to B, Locrian. Now let's move these 7 scales into a linear representation. Here each cell represents a semitone. Here too, E and F are next to each other, so do B and C. These are the modes, 7 scales born from a single combination. Each mode bears a particular combination of tones and semitones. If you think of it, they very much resemble barcodes, and they work the same way too, with each mode representing a unique sound system. Now let's pick 4 out of the 7 notes. In this we'll be moving from scales to chords and arpeggios. I'll remove notes 2, 4 and 6 of each scale, leaving them with notes 1, 3, 5 and 7, the root, the 3rd, the 5th and the 7th. If played together, that's a chord, harmony. If played one at a time, that's an arpeggio, melody. On the right, you can see that we now have not 7 but just 4 different combinations. 1 and 4 are the same, so are 2, 3 and 6, while 5 and 7 are unique. Look at this picture. The name of this building is Major Scale Harmonization. The first column represents the root of each mode. Look at that straight line working like an elevator, taking you from one floor to the other. On each floor you may encounter a different organization, and that elevator informs you where you are and takes you from one floor to the next. But at the same time, the elevator tells you little about each office's function. The third column represents the 5th. The 5th is strongly related to the root. They work together like the Prime Minister and President. For now, that it's almost a straight line from bottom to top, except for the 7th floor. So, the 5th differentiates scale degree number 7 from degrees 2, 3, and 6. That leaves us with the other two columns, 3rd and 7. These are called the guide tones. These are the columns that combined, for the most part, make each floor unique. You still need the other two columns to move around. You still need the route to measure the distance from the elevator to each office. But here, with the guide tones, is where crucial differentiation occurs. Here's the thing. These notes, 3rd and 7, are so strong that even in the temporary absence of the other two, you will be able to tell where you are. And back to the offices building. This is a creativity hub. Ideas start to shape on the 2nd floor. Later, they are heavily discussed on the 5th floor. And then, when there is a green light, they'll go down to the 1st floor for resolution and dispatch. That's, of course, the 2-5-1, the most common chord progression in jazz. Now, you can see the roots above, the 2, the 5, and the 1, in the context of the C major scale with all the natural notes. The arrows show the guide tones of each root. Interestingly, they all point at the same two precise spots, the notes separated by a semitone, B and C, E and F. Scales have built-in magnetic fields. Like with magnets, the mutual attraction is stronger when the notes are closer to each other. That's what is happening here. You have the most common chord progression, the 2-5-1. Its roots, as we have seen before, follow the circle of fourths, which is another essential structure, almighty and old as sound itself. Then you have the guide tones of these 3 scale degrees, a big chunk of each chord's DNA. This is where the attraction is the strongest. The guide tones map the most fundamental transfers of energy.